But then, when Paravasu does not reply to that question, so she says, I suppose that would be too human. You want to become a god, and coming back home after a fire sacrifice would be something very human to do. So I'm sure you're not going to come back. But she says, what's wrong with being human? What's wrong with being happy as we were before Indra came into you? Okay, we were so happy. Why should that be? But still Paravasu refuses to reply. And she says, I should be silenced, because after you left, it is only my silence that has been here. All right, it is my entire universe now. This endlessly repeated silence is my entire universe, but I am sick of the silence. All right, and that's why before you go, I beg you, please kill me, she says. She takes up the bow and arrow that he has been carrying, and she asks him to kill her. And Paravasu asks, you want me to kill you? And at last a question, Vishaka says, okay. And that's when she explains. She says, we are three of us here. Your brother is always in his own world. He's never home. Okay. That leaves me and your father. But your father is a very, very cruel man. Something died inside the day the king asked you to be the chief priest. So Paravasu's father, remember, even with his brother also, he was very ambitious, and that's why his brother died, and that's why Yavakri was taking revenge, remember. So Raibia always believed that he was the most important person, and the king would invite him to be the chief priest. But the day when Paravasu was invited, something died inside him. Okay, something, he lost hope, and since then he has been drying up like a dead tree. A tree that is dead, it will not grow anymore. It will keep drying and becoming old and dead. All right, there is no sap, there is no essence in him, she says. Okay, there is only lust, she says, and that lust, and that old man's lust, he takes it out on me. So we get an indication that he sexually exploits his own daughter-in-law. All right, and he says that there is nothing else for him to do, and that is why I am the only one who suffers under him. At least Yavakri was warm and gentle, so now we understand why she was so easily bent by Yavakri's words. She was not only lonely, she was also in pain because of her father-in-law's behavior. And when Yavakri came with his warmth and his gentleness and his memory of their happy time, she easily bent. For a few moments at least, he made her forget this old man's body and his claws, scratchy claws, his hands, that and his cold as ice blood that was always on her. But because he made me forget that bad experience, he paid for it with his life. And then they hear that Raibia is coming, and she says, here it comes, the crab. Okay, and he's coming to check whether I do not defile you just like I defiled Yavakri. Grant me this favor, please kill me, she says. Okay, maybe you have tried so many experiments. The ultimate experiment is human sacrifice. Try that also. Maybe that will bring you your greatness, your reign. All right, and Parvasu says, you're right, I must try the human sacrifice. You are still my guru. Remember, in their second year of marriage, they were explorers and they were learning from each other. So he says, you are still my guru. And he aims his arrow at her, but he does not kill her. Instead, he kills his father, who is coming from far away. All right, and he collapses there. Vishaka is shocked, and she says, now you'll never know if I told you a lie. Okay, so probably the reason why Paravasu kills his father is because he heard of him defiling his wife. Probably that was the reason. And Vishaka says that, how will you know if I lied or not? So Paravasu says that you don't need to. So that is not the only reason why he killed his own father. He deserved to die. Why did he deserve to die? He killed Yavakri to disturb me. Okay, so the reason why he killed Yavakri is not for Vishaka. Vishaka always thinks that everything is happening for her, but these men have their own agenda. Okay, so Paravasu says that he killed Yavakri to disturb me, so that I will hear of Yavakri's death, and when I say why did he die, I will hear of you and his relation. Okay, so that will disturb me in the last stage of my sacrifice, and my sacrifice will not be successful. Okay, so he is trying to get even with me because I was chosen to be the chief priest, and I had to do something before he acted further and did something to defile the entire sacrifice. But then Vishaka says that, but there is some other worry in you. What is it? Okay, I have been sensing it. But he does not reply to that, and he says that this old man is dead, we have to do something. Okay, and Vishaka says that he has had a long life, what is the hurry now? They look at each other, and then they hear um, Aravasu, who's on the Tamarind Hill, he's talking to himself. He's very sad. He's still remembering that, only half an hour and he lost Nithilai. All right. And the reason why he was late, look at that. He says, I stopped to bathe on my way to your village. Why did he do that? Because he had cremated a body, and among Brahmins that is an impure act, so he cannot go and do anything until he has taken a bath. He says that, I could not bear, I was unclean because I had touched a body, and I could not bear touching you with those unclean hands. An untouchable would not have cared about such things and would have run to you, but me, an outcast wouldn't have cared about such thing, but me, because I am a Brahmin, my caste did not let me go, my cursed caste wouldn't let me go, he says. All right, to think that you would have been mine in half an hour. All right, he's pining over his lost love. And that's when Parvasu calls him. Arvasu comes and he sees his father's dead body, and he's very 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 shocked. He says, oh my god, what happened? Blood, let's try to save him. Okay, and Parvasu says that in the dark I thought it was a wild animal when I heard sounds, and I shot my bow and it was him. Okay, so Arvasu tries to say that let's save him, but Parvasu says that he is dead. All right, and he asks a favor from Aravasu. He says that, I have to go back to the sacrifice because before anyone finds out that I left. So what you have to do is, the fire sacrifice should not be ruined. That is very very important. It must go on, and you are the only one who can ensure that. So Aravasu says that, but there is blood on your hands. Yes, I will wash that off, he says. Okay, but you must atone for father's death. He did not die a natural death, he was murdered. So there are many rituals that must be done. You must do the atonement instead of me. All right, I have to return. So there's only one person who can do that, and that is you. It is your duty to do that. All right, but Vishaka understands that there is some play here. He says, say no, do not listen to him. But Aravasu, being a simple boy, he agrees to his father. All right, and his brother, and Paravasu leaves and goes back to the fire sacrifice. All right, Paravasu blesses him and walks away. Vishaka stares dumbly after him and then walks mechanically back to the hermitage. Arvasu starts piling wood for a funeral pyre. All right, and then when Paravasu is walking back through the jungle, going back to the sacrificial place, the Brahma Rakshasa comes suddenly, and he is not shocked. He says, what a pleasure, he says. Okay, and Brahma Rakshasa says, how did you recognize me? He says, I was expecting you. Where else could you possibly go? Okay, now the Brahma Rakshasa has come to ask help from Paravasu. All right, Brahma Rakshasa has asked to come is asking for help. He says that, your father gave me a new birth, so that makes us brothers. So this idea of brotherhood is something that we will look into at length when we analyze this play. I'm just doing the summary right now. We have to do an analysis also, right? So when we analyze, we will look at this brotherhood angle very very closely. So here again, the Brahma Rakshasa becomes a brother because his father Raibhya was the one who invoked the Kritya that gave birth to the Brahma Rakshasa. So in that manner, he says that he asks Paravasu to give him moksha because we are brothers and it is your duty to help me. All right, so he says that you have no choice. I was living when I was a human, I did not have a good life, and that's why I was punished after my death. I was not reborn. I was not sent to heaven or hell. I had to exist in that limbo state, in the state between birth and death. All right, almost like, you can imagine a fetus that is stitched up inside its mother's womb, who cannot come out. It's stuck there. Okay, that is the horror of existence, the nothingness. There is nothing to look forward to. Very very absurd existence. It is from that existence that your father plucked me out and gave birth to me to kill Yavakri. I did not want to kill Yavakri, but I had to obey. And the result is now that I have a new hope of release from the state. All right. So Paravasu says that you should have asked my father. And then Brahma Rakshasa said that I would have, but you killed him. So now it is your duty to help him. Okay. So he wants liberation. He wants to fade away. He wants to become nothing. Okay. He does not want to go back to that between state anymore. So Paravasu says that Yavakri wanted all universal knowledge. You want moksha. Endaka demands ana. Okay, I am not interested in all of that. I am not going to help you, he says. All right. And that is when Brahma Rakshasa says that you talk of immortality. You say that when you meet Indra, you will become immortal. Look, I have been immortal, but the only thing that I want is death now. Okay, please release me. You owe it to me, he says. Okay, he says, the Paravasu says, I don't owe anyone anything. Don't pester me. You'll get nothing. Okay, and the Brahma Rakshasa says, it's not so easy to get rid of a brother. Okay, so again that word brother is coming up. It's not easy to get rid of me. I will disturb you again, he says. Okay, Aravasu in the meantime has completed all the funeral rites. He comes home and he calls out to his sister-in-law, but there is no one. He realizes that his sister-in-law has gone somewhere. The hermitage is empty. In a corner he sees that the water pot is covered with cobwebs. That means it has not been touched for a long time. So he walks out of the house and he goes to the sacrificial area where the fire sacrifice is going on. He enters and he sits among the Brahmins watching the rituals. And Paravasu initially does not notice him, but after a while he notices him and suddenly freezes. Something comes upon him. His face turns pale. His words don't come out. Okay, when he stops talking, everyone looks at him. All the other people gathered there looks at him. The hymns stop. They all stare, not understanding what is happening. They look at Paravasu and then at Aravasu, and Aravasu is embarrassed. Why is everyone stopping at my regard? So Paravasu says, you. And Aravasu is confused. Me? Yes, you. Who are you? Me? Yes, tell us. He says, I am Aravasu, the son of Raibhya. And where did you come from? Paravasu asks. My father died. I've just completed his obsequies and the expiation. So I've just done atonement. I've just cremated him. I'm coming from that. Why the expiation? Why did you have to atone? Tell us why. He was killed. He did not die naturally, Aravasu says. By who? Paravasu asks. Okay, and Aravasu is confused now. What should he say? It is the fire sacrifice. If he says by Paravasu, the entire thing will become wrong. So instead of saying that, and instead of, he cannot lie because he is a Brahmin sitting in a very pure place, right? So he said he was killed by the hands of his own son. And that's when everyone breaks into a commotion, and he says, Parvasu says, patricide. What is patricide? The killing of a father, right? What is he doing in this sanctified precinct? This is a very, very sacred place. What is someone who killed his own father doing here? Throw him out, demon. That is when he calls him a demon. Remember in the prologue, the king has said that you himself called him a demon. This is where he calls him a demon. So what is he trying to do? He's trying to put the fault of his father's death onto his brother's head, and he himself wants to become the great chief priest. All right, 3 or 4 Brahmins pounce on Aravasu and drag him out. Aravasu is a simple boy. He does not understand. He keeps shouting, but why, brother? Why? Some soldiers catch him and they drag him away. He keeps shouting, why? Tell me why, please. All right, and that's when Paravasu looks at the assembly of priests and the other people who are watching the sacrifice, and he says, as the sacrifice approaches its completion, the demons come out, Rakshasas. Their sole aim is to disrupt a sacrifice. We must be on our guard. Okay, so he's saying that, remember this dialogue was said before also in the prologue, that as the sacrifice comes to an end, there are many people who will try to disturb it, especially the demons, the Rakshasas. Okay, their aim is to disrupt the sacrifice, but we must always be careful and look out for such kind of people. Okay, and then the rites begin again and the stage darkens, and that is where Act 2 ends.